Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be part 2 of my decluttering series where I'm going to be going through all of my face powders as well as my primers and setting sprays. And if you are new to my channel and you missed out on part 1 of this series where I went through foundations and concealers, I will go ahead and make sure to link that down below. That way you can be all caught up. And I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that left me so much love and positive feedback on part 1 of this series. I'm so happy that you guys enjoy watching these because it makes it all the more fun for me to film these and share them with you guys. I just want to say it one last time for anybody that is new, this decluttering series is not being filmed with the intention of me getting rid of as much as possible. It's purely me going through all of my products, letting you guys know what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and just seeing if there is anything that I do want to get rid of. Yeah, just to give you a little brief overview on that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and jump right in. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start off with powders. So let's bring that guy front and center. And the first powder that I have is my Airspun Loose Face Powder. This is the Translucent Extra Coverage. I really have been enjoying this powder. I feel like I've barely made a dent in it. Ooh, lots of powder came out. Now, I would say that this is a good, not necessarily a dupe, but it's a good, cheaper alternative for the Laura Mercier Translucent Powder. The Laura Mercier powder is definitely a little bit more finely milled. It looks a lot more seamless and natural on the skin, where this definitely is a little bit more noticeable. It also has a pretty heavy scent. Like, it kind of smells like when I was a kid and I would go through my grandma's makeup. Like, it has that very old school, heavy fragrance makeup scent to it, which I'm not totally opposed to, but it is pretty strong. But yeah, I do love using this primarily in the nighttime just because, like I said, it's a little bit heavier on the skin and a little bit more noticeable. So I feel like in the daytime, it just looks way too powdery for me. But in the night, I think it is a good alternative. The next powder that I have on the total opposite of the spectrum of a drugstore powder is the La Mer powder. It's the shade 03 Beige. I've had this for a while now and I use it very sparingly. I would like to try to use it up this year. That's what it looks like. But you can see it is a little bit more of a beigey or pinky undertone, and I actually am more of an olive or yellow. So it's not the best fit in the world for my skin, but I love it. It's the smoothest, most like luxurious feeling powder ever. It just feels so silky and luxurious. I really do love this powder. La Mer makeup, I would say, is probably some of the best makeup I have ever tried in my life. And I'm not just saying that because the price tag is literally ridiculous. It really is some of the most like hydrating and flattering makeup and face products I have ever used. So I hold onto their products for so long, which is probably not a good thing, but I am gonna try to use the rest of this guy up. Hopefully by 2018, this will be gone because I would like to finally use the rest of that guy. So the next powder is the e.l.f. Pressed Powder. There we go. And I really love this powder. I've used it for years and years. I use the shade Sand, and it just looks like this. I love this powder because it has really good coverage. Now I do run through it pretty quickly. You can see I'm already hitting pan on it. So I would say I go through one of these easily every single month just because there isn't a whole lot of powder inside this little pan, but let me give you a little swatch of the coverage. So here's a little swatch of it on my finger, and then that is what it looks like. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but it does have really nice coverage. I think this is probably one of my all-time favorite drugstore powders just because it's nice and mattifying on the skin, but it also does have great coverage, so I will hold on to that guy. Now this powder I think I am gonna get rid of. It's the Makeup Forever Duo Matte Powder, and it looks like that. I just had this guy for really a long time, and I did try to use it up a little bit in the summer, and I found that it was just a little bit too dark for my complexion. Even in the summertime, I always wanna believe that I'm gonna get really tan and super bronze in the summer, and so I hold on to these really dark ass powders that do not match my skin whatsoever in the hopes that I'm gonna use it in the summer. But even in the summertime, this just does not look right on my skin. I think it just pulls a little bit too orange, and I do find that it oxidizes slightly throughout the day, so it's just not as flattering on my skin as it used to be. It's unfortunate because it is a beautiful powder. It's super full coverage and extremely mattifying, but I just think it's time to let this go just because I never figure out how exactly to use it all the way up. Next is my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder Palette. I love this and I will continue to use it up. It's just a really nice, soft, focused. I almost feel like it's kind of like a blurring powder in a sense because it just really softens any pores, any texture in my skin. It kind of gives it a little bit of a glisten without looking shimmery. So I really like this. I also have the Ben Nye Luxury Banana Powder. I am going to continue to use this guy up, even though, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of it in the world. It's definitely a very rich, deep yellow color. I really only use it when I'm mixing it with something like my Airspun powder, which is obviously a lot lighter, or my Laura Mercier translucent powder, which also is like very white and obviously super translucent, just to kind of help balance out the rich tones in this. And it actually doesn't look that deep when I swatch it out on my hand, but when I try to put this on my under eyes, you can kind of see in the cap, it does pull like a very deep yellow color. So this is a little bit more, I think, on the theatrical side. And I know that Ben Nye is used for a lot of theater makeup, so it's not really an everyday powder for me, but I still want to hold on to it just for those days when I want to give my under eye a little bit of highlight, but I do always have to mix it with something else, otherwise it just looks a little too crazy. I'm also going to be holding on to my L'Oreal True Match powder. I've talked about this guy over and over again. It's one of my favorite drugstore powder foundations, is really what I would classify this as. I go through these all the time and I am in the shade W5. I switch between, I think, W5 and W4, but I really, really love this. It's one of my all-time favorite drugstore powders. I have a mini one of these Laura Mercier translucent powders. I love this guy. I will always have one of these somewhere in my collection because I love using it to set not only my under eye area, but I love setting it for any area that's really oily on my face and I don't want my makeup to cake up a lot, such as like the side of my nose, where I'll notice a lot of oil kind of collects. Sorry if that's TMI, but if you have oily skin, you feel my pain. Sometimes you know that foundation will kind of collect around the side of your nose. I love using this underneath my foundation just to kind of help alleviate some of that like oil and build up from my foundation and stuff like that. So anyways, I love it. I will always have one of these around. I have two of these Laura Geller Balance and Brighten powders, and this just says foundation regular. This one does say the shade medium on it, but I think they're pretty much the same color. I am actually almost completely done with this guy, so it should be making an appearance in an empties video soon, but I absolutely love this powder. Do I feel like it's a foundation powder? For me and my standards, no. Like, I feel like this is much closer to a foundation powder than, say, the Laura Geller one, even though I think it is marketed as a foundation powder. I like using this just as a regular everyday powder, but I think it is one of the most flattering powders on my skin. It reminds me a lot of the MAC MSF. I think is it Mineral Skin Finish? Hopefully you guys know what I mean, but that's type of powder where it's just very subtle on the skin. It's not very heavy. It has a very natural finish to it, and it does add just a little bit of coverage to the skin as well. So I think this is one of my all-time favorite powders, and I'm happy that once this guy is all used up, I have this little mini guy to go through as well. I also have my Laura Mercier foundation powder, and this is the Smooth Finish Foundation Powder in 07. And it is a really nice, I want to say medium to full coverage powder. It feels very, very smooth on the skin. It is something that it looks and feels a little bit heavier on the skin, so it's not something that I use ever really in the daytime, but as a nighttime powder to really kind of like lock all of my foundation in, concealer, all of that, this is really good because it's a very heavy duty powder. Also, if I didn't, if you guys are curious about me swatching the Laura Geller powder, I don't know if you are, but if you are, I'm just gonna give you a quick swatch of that. There's a little swatch of it there. It almost does look like it pulls a little bit more beigey on my arm, but on my skin, it looks totally fine. But you can see there's not a really heavy powdery coverage with this. It's just very nice and light, and I feel like very natural looking. So I'm also gonna be holding on to this Josie Maran Argan Matchmaker Powder Foundation in light medium. I really do love this powder. I had a goal to use this up in 2016, and I think I just completely forgot about it, but it's a really nice, pretty medium to full coverage powder. It's very soft and light on the skin, so it doesn't look or feel heavy whatsoever, but I do have to make a goal of finally finishing this guy up this year. This powder I think I'm gonna get rid of. It's another one of the e.l.f. pressed powders, but this one is in the shade Almond, and I ordered this guy on accident. There was a time where I think e.l.f. reformulated all of these powders, and so the shade names were kind of mixed up, and I think I used to be Almond in the older formulation of these powders, so I ordered this shade and it just ended up being way too dark for me. Yeah, I am gonna go ahead and give this guy away. I think Sand is definitely a better match for my skin. I have another under eye setting powder. It's the SMA Brightening French Vanilla Powder Translucent. I have used this quite a number of times now for setting my under eye area, and I kind of have the same feeling about this as I do the Ben Nye powder, where it does have a pretty deep, rich, sort of yellow kind of color to it. I know some people live by this setting powder for their under eye area. For me, it is another one of those powders where I kind of have to mix it with either the Airspun powder. I prefer the Laura Mercier translucent powder for this one though, just because it is a little bit more finely milled. I find that I do mix those two and then I'm happy with the result, but totally by itself, I just feel like it looks literally, oh, I just spilled a bunch, but I feel like it literally looks just like a stripe of yellow under my eyes, which I'm not crazy about. Next, I have this NYX color correcting powder, and this is in the shade Banana, and I think I did do a review on this guy a long time ago on my channel in the early days. If I can still find it, I will go ahead and link it down below, but I really love this. I think this is a good, affordable alternative to the Ben Nye powder if you like this kind of yellow tone. But what's nice about this powder is that it's not quite as stark, I think, and heavy looking as this guy. It's obviously not as like quality as the Ben Nye Luxury powder. It does feel a little bit more lightweight, but I think it does pretty much the exact same thing in terms of like coverage and sort of highlighting the area. Plus I feel like it's a little bit more forgiving in terms of the tone. It doesn't look like a crazy stark deep yellow on the under eye. So this guy I will definitely continue to hold on to. I also have a Rimmel Stay Matte powder. This is in the shade 004 Sandstorm. This is another one that I will always have around. I really like it because it gives me a mattifying finish, but it doesn't look really heavy and I think kind of like unflattering for like textured skin and stuff like that. I've mentioned before to you guys that sometimes products that are marketed as like pore filling or super mattifying end up looking really heavy and kind of maturing my skin more than I want it to look. But what's nice about this is that it mattifies my skin without that really heavy look on my face. I definitely don't love it as much as I did back in my teen years when my skin was a little bit smoother, but I still love having this guy around just as like a quick, easy face powder. I have a MAC powder press. This is their blot powder in medium dark. I think this was a gift from a friend of mine who works for MAC. And yeah, it just kind of looks like this. It's just a translucent powder. It's kind of a powder that you keep in your bag on those days where you're running a lot of errands and you need something just to kind of touch up throughout the day, but you don't want to use like a super heavy powder. I will continue to hold on to this guy because I do really like it. I also have a MAC Studio Care Blend pressed powder in medium plus, and this guy is pretty much done, so I actually think I am going to go ahead and let this guy go finally. I really did like it. It's a very super smooth, very lightweight powder. This isn't really something I turn to for coverage, but more so just kind of setting my foundation. This is just one of those easy go-to, don't have to think about it type of powders. Next, I have the Bare Minerals matte powder. This one is in medium beige, and this one I think it is about time that I get rid of it. I thought I got rid of this last year. I don't know why I still held on to it. Yeah, it is just way too dark for my skin. It's nothing against the formulation of the powder. I know a lot of people really love Bare Minerals powder, and I think they've come out with quite a few new ones that have like really good reviews, but this one is just way too deep for my skin. I don't know why I bought it that color. Just don't ask me. I don't know what I was thinking, but I have my e.l.f. Translucent Mattifying Powder, and I do love this guy. I will hold on to it. I did share this, I think, in my beauty hack video for applying underneath my foundation. So I like using this or my Laura Mercier translucent powder one. I actually do prefer this, I think, even a little bit more though, just because it is pressed. So it does pack a little bit more product onto the skin than say using like a loose powder one. I think it just depends on your skin type and skin issues. I love applying this underneath my foundation to keep my T-zone more matte throughout the day. It's awesome. This is one of my favorite translucent powders just for like oil blotting, or when I'm feeling like especially greasy or anything like that. It's really good for touch-ups. So the last little powder in here actually says e.l.f. cream eyeliner, but it's not an eyeliner in here. It's actually more of, I think, that banana powder from NYX that I put in here at one point just for traveling. So that's what this guy is. But yeah, I'm just gonna toss him back in here. So that is going to be it for my powders. So for my powders, this is pretty much everything that I got rid of for this round.